What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 award winner in the innovation category given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And now, as of last week, I am co-hosting monthly conversations for fathers and dads that are co-sponsored by Dads Central, Canada's national fathering organization, Dads Central Ontario, to be exact, and Dove Men Care. We are jacked, and as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We love having new friends on the Dr. Vibe Show. We have another new friend that's with us today, and he's going to be part of the outstanding comedy lineup, the online comedy event that's happening this Sunday, April 12th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. It's called the April Fool's Bun and Cheese online comedy edition, and we are blessed to have one of the people going to make us laugh, because we need laughter at all times, especially now, Clif Knight, and he's a Guyanese born comedian based in Toronto, on stage as a musician at the age of 11. Clif found the transition to comedy very agreeable, has been making people laugh since 2016. Making appearances at the Nubian Show with Kenny Robinson in Toronto and the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with his one-man show, he brings a Caribbean twist to everyday humor and shines light on the funny side of being a visible minority in Canada. Yes, you can have fun being a visible minority in Canada. We are very blessed to have him on today. He's going to share a little bit about himself, a little bit of his background, and how he is excited for this online show coming up. So welcome to the Dr. Vibe Show for the first time, but not the last time. Mr. Clif Knight, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good, Dr. Vibe. Thanks for having me. This is pretty amazing. I feel honored to be on the show.
Right back at you. I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule, because you told me before we went on live you're either in the middle of a move or just finished moving.
I mean, it's a whole thing. We booked our move about a month before the quarantine order came in. And then the day after we started moving is when that order started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, but the problem is that we were moving back to an old place that was full of previous furniture. And so now we have 2 apartments worth of stuff that we have to squeeze into one single apartment.
Ouch.
It's been fun. It's taken about 2 weeks. We can finally sit on our couch again. And, we've thrown out over 1,300 pounds of random, broken, old stuff.
Oh, hold on a second. You know how much weight it is?
Yeah.
Well, you have a scale?
I've been keeping track because the old movers broke a lot of our old stuff. I mean, it was old junk anyway, but they broke it. And, we had a lot of clothes that had some damage on it. We had just a bunch of stuff that didn't fit anymore. So, yeah, it's all... We're getting there slowly but surely. I've put up a lot of shelves, let me tell you. Oh my God.
Well, you know what? After you're finished, you can come help me do some purging. How about that?
I'm about it. Listen, I Marie Kondo everything. Okay.
Oh, wow. So another job, another thing other than being a comedian. I may have to hire this young man.
Okay. That was my job. I worked at a shop in Brampton, which this guy made speakers for automotive.
Okay.
And I was really interested in audio stuff at the time. Like, I was still doing music. And so I was there to learn. But really, pretty much, he had me cleaning up his place because he had one of these people, they're very good at their job, but they have no sense of, like, all this stuff. He had no sense of, like, keeping tidy.
Yep.
Or leaving tools in one place so that he can find them again. So after I had cleaned up the shop, we found out, like, he had triplicates of almost all of his tools.
You're kidding.
Everywhere, just because he would buy another one if he couldn't find the one he was looking for. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, wow. Well, my man, let's talk a little bit about your background. Born in Guyana, how was life growing up in Guyana with family there?
Yeah, I mean, you can see I got my little flag up here and everything like that. We repping the 592. All right, cool. And I mean, I lived there until I was 20 years old. which surprises a lot of people because they're like, you don't have an accent. I'd be like, what do you mean me ain't got no accent? But you know, you come here and you adjust. I got a job in sales, so you got to figure that out. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up there was pretty interesting, just because, like, I mean, of course, the whole life is different. Your everyday interactions are different. School life is, you know, I'm really glad that I went to school there because I've heard so many stories and seen so many examples of the schooling that occurs here and in North America in general. And so a lot of people would tell you the British system is it's way more sophisticated, bordering on brutal. That kind of makes sure that you come out competent.
Right.
So I'm really, really thankful for that sort of upbringing. My mom was a music teacher there, so she kind of made sure that I had no stage fright by the time I hit puberty, and that was pretty good. My dad is the super agreeable person that everybody kind of knows and loves. So you know you figure out how to make sure that people like you, you know, or at least that they don't not like you, which sounds like the same thing, but it's not.
Cool. Memories. What was family life like for the first 20 years of your life in another country?
I mean, to me, it didn't feel like another country. And this is the thing, you know, when I was there. The big thing that I remember that I do not miss at all is blackouts. Pretty much you would have a daily blackout. Like, pretty much the government would decide that from like 9 a.m. to like 4:30, you don't need lights. No, the sun is out. You're okay. You're fine. What's that? Your fridge is off? I don't care.
Oh my goodness. Do you miss Guyana?
Certain parts of it for sure. Just because like life is easier there. Like a lot of Caribbean and especially African people will tell you that life is much easier back home. It's easier to live your life, you know, especially if you have some sort of like family base that can support you. You know, it works a lot better. There's a lot less regulation. I mean, the regulations are there, but people aren't really paying attention. You know, when you get here, life becomes that much more complex. You got to figure out a new brand of racism, all this stuff. It's, you know, you got to pay taxes, get a license. What is this? You know,
Well, you know, myself being of Jamaican heritage, I get where you're coming from because whenever I go back and visit, the life is so different. They value life. They value life. They value just quality time. They're not the hustle and bustle. They just enjoy, even though supposedly materially, they have less. They have more value of life, and they enjoy their life more.
It's something I can't remember if my friend or my cousin would say is empty wallet, full life. That sort of thing. He would say it like that, and I would go because like I grew up in Georgetown, like the big city in Guyana.
Yeah.
But like a lot of my family's from like the bush, the river, so you would go there, and it kind of seems like these people have nothing, but they wake up in the morning. I have an aunt on the river. She reads so much. She reads so many books. Like she takes her boat and she goes to the market every couple of weeks, and she picks up just so many books, and that's just what she does. You know what I mean? And it seems so simple, but you know, the quality of life, you can't really beat that.
Truth. What was the reason for leaving that and coming to Canada?
I mean, of course, it's multifaceted. My mom came here to live with her family because she had her sister and all of her siblings, and her father was here. She wanted me to go to school here, so I came up. I went to college. I went to Humber College on the lake.
Yep.
Which was a lot of fun. You know, it's a general thing. And plus, she could see that I had ambitions in entertainment. And the ceiling, even though life is easier, the ceiling is mad low in the Caribbean for anything you want to do. It's very rare that anybody breaks out of that sphere to be able to do much. You know, even though your life is easy, you are caught in a corporate trap if you are lucky enough to even get into that trap.
Mm-hmm.
So you come here, and even though there's more of a pressure to make sure that you sustain a sort of life financially, the opportunity is way more tangible for you to do something creative, and get away with it, so to speak.
Now, so she knew that you wanted to get involved in entertainment. When did you find out that that is something you wanted to get into? And did your dad also find that was okay? It sounds like your mother seemed to be okay with it. Was dad okay with it?
It's That's tricky. I mean, my dad is he's such an independent that he kind of imbibed me with that same, I mean, whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna do, because if it's gonna work, it's gonna work, sort of thing. And my mom, like I said, she made sure that I was on stage very young,
Okay.
and very often, and for some of the biggest crowds. She taught for the Royal Schools of
Yep.
Music in Guyana. So when we would have shows at the National Cultural Center, that's like 2,000 people
Wow.
that you've got there,
Wow.
and I've been doing that, yeah, since I was a preteen, and then you just keep doing it. And so I started band with one of my friends when I was like 16, and then we started doing private shows and stuff like that. I came up here and did a little bit of music, and then that was completely interrupted by school. Like I said, I went to college, and that kind of like took over my life, because here you have to work. I had 3 jobs and school at the same time. You kind of like, you do the circus act and make it work. And then when I was just about done school, I went jogging one night and got lost, and found myself at a comedy club. And the owner of the comedy club invited me to do a set, and I've just been doing this ever since.
You went jogging. You got lost. You can't write. Are you planning to do a documentary? Because I want to see this part of the documentary.
I should probably do a sketch
Yes.
about it. Yeah, I'll probably do a sketch about it.
Wow. And what was the name of the comedy club?
It's the Corner Comedy Club. It's downtown at Bathurst and Queen, about Queen and John,
Yeah.
actually.
So, folks, we're talking from a Toronto perspective. I know I have a worldwide audience, so it's basically downtown Toronto. Okay, when he asked you to do that comedy set, were you open to do it? Did you push back? Were you saying, bring it on? Well,
I mean, it was interesting because I didn't even know comedy was a thing you could just do, that you could just go. Because in Guyana, if you want to be a comedian, you need to be a part of the theater guild. You need to actually work on acting first and then become a comic actor. There's no stand up there. And even though I had watched a lot of stand up, I didn't know that, you walk in a comedy club and people laugh and that was it. I thought you need to show ID or something. I didn't really know. So I took a week and I wrote some funny stories that I had always told. I brought it to the club. And I think in 5 minutes, I got one chuckle throughout the whole thing. And it was horrendous, but I was hooked. So
that's quite the story. You had your first performance. You got one chuckle. Why didn't you quit?
For one, I stayed to watch the show, which a lot of comedians will tell you, if you watch a lot of comedy, you'll see a lot of bad comedy. And that kind of inspired me more to be like, I saw some really great guys and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I saw some really bad guys. And then I was like, oh, I could probably do better than that. And then I had recorded my set. I listened to it again. I'm like, oh, I can definitely do better than this. And so it just became a self-challenge. And I'm like, okay, I'll see. And it became like a new hobby, and pretty soon I was given a show at a bar at the Poetry Jazz Cafe in Kensington Market. And I began producing, and it just took off, really. I started making a little bit of money. I made a lot of friends. People told me I got funnier, and then it just kept going. It didn't appear to me to be an option to just quit.
Okay. Would this conversation be different if you didn't record that first performance?
Maybe, maybe not. I think I was planning to go back anyway. But I had recorded it to show my friends. And that's really what it was. And then I didn't show them that first one. Actually, I listened to it before I sent it to them, and then I decided to wait. I think it was like a month later before I sent them
No,
first
because
audio.
it's very interesting your mindset to record your first performance, because not everyone would do that.
This is what I've come to realize. So I've been writing a few advice articles for comics, for new comics, and a lot of people hate recording themselves, and I understand wholeheartedly. Like listening to your own voice or watching yourself perform on video, if you're not used to it, is so cringeworthy. I totally get it, especially if you're doing something like comedy, where the audience is judging you by nature. You know, and so I don't know. I felt like I needed to look back at it because, like I said, I have a
Right,
performing background, and
right.
that's just what you do. Is you critique your
Get it.
performance. You know, so that was just automatic for
So
me.
just going through your journey, you're building momentum, you're starting to get paid. When was the first gig that you said, you know what, I've got something good going on here?
Um, it was a
Okay.
mistake actually.
I got something good. It's a mistake. Okay. All right.
This is actually a mistake. What had happened? First, I had been booked on a charity. And a lot of times when you're dealing with charity, when it comes to comedians, a lot of organizers for third party events don't really understand how to organize a comedy show. They know the event that they want to put on, and then they want to throw some comedians in that. And it's usually a fiasco. And I decided and I knew that this was going to happen. So I decided I'm going to show up early to this gig. I'm going to show up an hour early. I run into the organizer. He has no idea what he's doing. So I decide I'm going to help him out because I have nothing to do and I want the show to go well. I'm not getting paid for this, but I want the show to go well. And I kind of help him out and I realized, yeah, I have a little bit of a knack for putting things in order, getting people organized. And then after doing all that, and I had been walking around the venue and talking to people, I got the bead on their personalities and stuff like that. And I was able to do about 20 minutes of material with none of my own jokes. I was just talking about them, themselves. And that's something that I do to this day. If I get booked on a specialty gig, a birthday party, or a wedding reception, I show up early. I talk to everybody. I do my sound check, but also that gives me extra power. That gives me face recognition because I'm not just some random guy coming out of the wings, and that showed me that I have a
Where
knack for
where
doing
did
this.
you where did you learn that technique of showing up early, meeting the crowd? I'm going to build on that, but where did you learn that from?
Um, Hard to say. I think it's just it's just a reflex that I would have, like going to things with my mother, because she would always do sound check for music, and you'd have to make sure, yeah, you know who the sound guy is, you know who the stage hands are, you understand the parameters of the show. Sometimes you've prepared something, but then you get there and the organizer is not on board with that. So not getting blindsided is just one thing that I've learned. And then I've been with my band for almost 3 years, and we weren't doing that, and it was just a disaster every time. So it's just now it's a thing of like, yeah, I'm going to show up a little bit early and make sure I get a beat on
That's
them.
very interesting because I get the opportunity period to go and share and do presentations in front of the audience. And that's one of the things I always do. I like to show up early, chat with some people. It, gets, and if I do, I get like to use my conversation with them in the crowd. So it gives you it's almost like a little warm up in the way that's.
Yeah, yeah, and that is the thing that comedians do. I mean, if you ever looked at any of the talk shows or even the cooking shows that you see on TV, they actually have a warm up comic who goes out and warms up the crowd. So it's not a cold audience. You can do that, without the microphone, as I'd found. So I would go and I would find little pockets of people, talk to people. Some people decide that they like you before you even go on stage. Some people decide to stick around for you, because you've talked to them a little, you've told them their own personal jokes now, And then later on, you're going to hear my
giving
jokes.
them attention. Giving them attention.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Before we went live, you mentioned that you were involved in business. And one of the things you've noticed is not every comedian has the business sense when it comes to the world of comedy. Could you expand on that a little bit for our audience?
I noticed it because I went to business school at Humber. And Humber is actually the only school that also has a comedy school within it. So you can actually get a comedy degree. I think Canada is one of 3 countries that has that. And I met a lot of comedians there, and a lot of them are very, very funny. But when it comes to the business side of things, they don't really have the time. They don't really have the skills for it because, of course, they've been focusing on the creative side a lot. And I had gotten jobs as like a project manager. I was a systems manager. I was a sales manager and all these sort of things. And not all of those are directly involved with the running of the sort of like a creative business, but there are certain templates and some instincts that you can draw on to make sure that you have a smooth running machine when you're ready to actually put out your content. you know I'm not exactly the best at it either, but I noticed that a lot of comics are very especially here in Canada. The idea is that you won't miss opportunities if you're good enough. There's this commonly known phrase, be undeniable, be undeniable. It's a quote from Steve Martin, a very, very, very funny guy. Is be so good they can't deny you, which is true. There are a lot of very funny people that get opportunities, not exactly handed to them, but somebody comes in to take care of you, and that's kind of the dream, is to have someone, have like a team come along and make sure that you get to just do your thing, and they will take care of everything else. They take care of your money, your promotion, your day to day. But I've come to realize after reading Steve Martin's actual book, that's not what he means. He does not mean be so funny and nothing else that they can't deny you. Be undeniable means be easy to work with,
Yes.
be professional, make sure that you are the driving force behind your success in all facets, right? So when it really comes down to it, being funny ends up being something like 30 to 40% of your job.
Good stuff. Well, let's talk about what is your comedy style? What do you like to chat about when you're on stage?
Now this has been weird. I kind of just write jokes, not in that I make stuff up. There are 1 or 2 times where I notice something and then I draw it to the extreme within my own head. A fair amount of my comedy from the beginning and all the way to now is just stories, that things that have happened to me or things that I've seen relayed, through the filter of my own internal dialogue. And so when it comes to rewriting some of those, it's a little bit of a balancing act, especially when it comes to relating a Caribbean experience or in general a minority experience here in Toronto, because a lot of the comedy clubs, a lot of the comedy audience is majority white, so they have to be able to also enjoy what it is. Like, I'm not going to really. I used to compromise on what I talk about. I used to really suppress what, how much Guyanese material, Caribbean material, black stuff that I would do. But now I've been working on a technique to translate so that they don't have to know exactly what I'm talking about, but they get a gist and they understand why it's funny. They get to see it through my lens a little bit. And that's just what being a presenter is. But of course, it took me a little while. It took me 3 years to even come up with the concept, and I'm still working on it right now.
Are the audiences more? You are funny, but are you noticing your audience are more receptive, more reactive to your relationship with the Caribbean experience? Right.
It depends on the audience, for sure. Some of them, like if I'll do a show, something like Kenny Robinson's Nubian Show, there's a pre-existing assumption that some of the stuff I'm going to talk about they know from personal experience, and I'm going to draw on that reservoir of knowledge from them. Others, the joke is going to have to be me explaining, this particular experience to them, and then I get to the extra part of the joke. I have a joke about barbershops that I would do. And this is something that I know no white people know about. Is if you're in the barbershop and the barber decides he's going to take a call while he's cutting your hair, that's never happened. That's never happened in any of that's a black barbershop.
Yes.
100%. He's going to take, and you're going to hear all of his business. You're going to hear all his lotto numbers. You're going to know how many baby mamas he's got, this sort of thing. And people are like, what are you talking about? Take a call in the middle. Does he have on a Bluetooth? No, it's this. That's what he's doing while So sometimes bringing that, and that bit is coming up on 6 minutes for the whole thing, because I have to explain, first of all, what is an old school black barbershop. It's like people are playing chess in the corner. People are watching basketball and arguing, and you have to bring it all together. And then there's other aspects of bringing up, like the black barbershop, as good as it is, it's one of the mainstays of toxic masculinity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, and we have to like realize what it is. And whenever you're in a barbershop and somebody tries calling that out, they're like, your hair done, man. Get out. Your hair done. Come back when your mouth not hot.
Have you ever done a show in a barbershop? I'd love to see you do a show in a barbershop.
It was set up. There is a barbershop in, I believe in Belleville, but not in a black barbershop. I have not. There's a whole lot that's happening, especially now. I had an entire tour planned before all of this kicked off. I was supposed to go to Vancouver, Thunder Bay, Indiana, Montreal, and everything's canceled.
How are you handling the shift that has happened to all of us? What things are you doing now that you were not able to do if you were touring?
One of the big ones is put my house in order, that I've been kind of putting off. Also, getting a lot of different writing done. I'm one of those, I can't sit at home and write. It's been a real bad habit of mine. I need to be at a show. I would go to an open mic. That is not a show of consequence or anything. You don't have to particularly listen. So I would go there and I'd sit in the back. I'd flesh out some of my own jokes before I go on there. I would write tags for other comics. Like if a joke grabs me and I want to add something to it, I'd write the tag and send it to them, that sort of thing. I can't do any of that. So now I'm stuck at home. So I'm forcing myself to, build the habit of writing a little bit every day. Of course, there are online comedy shows that are happening. So, that's making sure I'm putting out a lot more content that I used to. And that's all good. And of course, spending a lot more time with my fiance, my pets, staying home, making sure.
So a few comments, conversation topics here. How is it balancing a relationship, like outside, even while this is going on, or when you're doing your regular stuff? How easy or challenging is it to balance a relationship while you're leading an entertainment life?
It's supposed to be hard. I guess I got a little bit lucky in that my partner, she had also been in show business. She used to be a drummer for a long time. Her sister did comedy for a long time and is still in acting and producing and stuff like that. So she understands. Also, I'm very lucky in that she has a bit of a discerning eye. So she's able to say, this is good, this is not good. You might not want to do that. She's able to give me a real read on things, something I can actually listen to. She understands. Like when I started, after I got lost and got invited to a comedy club, my first 6 to 7 months of comedy, I would do something like 20 to 23 shows a week.
Did you sleep?
Yeah. And it was tough, and I was still working, and I was still going to school at the time. And it really takes, luckily a lot of them are bunched together. It's all downtown Toronto. You need to have some friends to write your name down because you can't possibly get there. You need to trust the TTC or have a bike, something like that. I had a lot of friends who take Ubers, people drive. And then I slowed that down significantly to something like 7 shows a week, like going out every night. So even after 3 years, I would still go out every single
Wow.
night. So she just got used to
How
that.
did you survive that period when you're doing 20 to 20, averaging 20 shows a week? Like, how did you keep it going?
Yeah. It got easier mostly because like it's that youthful energy, man. It's something you like to do, so you figure it out. And I have a lot of friends. They're very excited, and they're like, "Oh, are you coming to this show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on my way." Put my name down, and sometimes you miss stuff, but still show up. You get booked on certain shows, and any working comic will tell you this as well. It's just like, Wednesdays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Sundays sometimes you're gonna come into the show at 8 o'clock, and you're gonna do your 10-minute set, probably from 8 to 8:15 or something like that, and then you're gonna leave immediately because you have another
Wow.
show across town at 8:30. You're gonna get there. You're probably gonna get there kind of late, so 8:45 to maybe 9 o'clock. You're gonna leave immediately because there's another show happening across town at 10:30. You might have time to grab a shawarma, something like that. So
Okay.
you
All
just
right.
press it.
How is your show? I'll hold that off. You're going to be appearing this Sunday with other comics. Have you done an online show before?
Yeah, actually, fortunately, I had already done a lot of online stuff before all of this came in, so it wasn't a crazy transition. I know a lot of traditional
Oh,
stage comics are hating it right now. They do they do not like it because, and I can understand why. It's you don't realize, or at least I didn't realize how much you miss feeling the laughter in your chest, stepping onto a stage, physically holding a mic. I miss all of that. And if I hadn't been, in performance in this multifaceted way, it probably would have said, I know a lot of comics that aren't doing anything right now. They aren't producing anything at all, which is fair because it is a very stressful time, but they're citing it because they're like, oh, I don't want to do an online show. I don't want to perform to nobody laughing back at me. How do I know when to pause for laughter? I'm like, well, you got to know how you wrote your joke. Is my answer. You got to have a little bit of faith. A lot of shows that I've done are just like this. There's an audience, and then you have the host, and the host is the one who cues you as to whether or not there's going to be laughter. So you got to figure that out. It is challenging, but there are a lot of people who are not having fun with it. I'll tell you this though, it's been interesting. People have been paying more
interesting.
for comedy online than they have been
Interesting.
going to shows.
Very, very interesting. Well, I think also now
Yeah,
people don't have much to do, and plus they need more to laugh. So they're looking for that escape.
yeah. Well, and this is the weird thing in Toronto.
Wow.
Toronto is like a comedy capital of the world, and people don't really know, which is a little weird. People think New York,
Yeah.
LA, Chicago, probably, and of course London and Tokyo are comedy capitals. But Toronto is probably one of the best comedy gyms in the world, and it's not promoted as such. I speak to a lot of people, and they have no idea where the comedy shows are. And so now that they're not able to go out, a few people are like, there must be local comedians. And truth be told, we have a lot of the best. Like we've exported so many greats: Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
what's his name, Norm Macdonald, Mike McDonald, right? We've sent so many people overseas, John Candy, like heavyweights from Canada, and then there's a bunch of people that are so funny that you'll never hear about because of the media structure here in Canada. There's no real national promotion for comedians. There's no late night. There's no Kimmel for people to go on and do a 5 minute set. So you have heavy hitters like even Kenny Robinson was a star. You know what I mean? Is still totally a star, and people know him from that era. But there's a lot of people that are here and are making great rounds. You have Hisham Kalani, you have Leonard Chan, Foad HP, some serious people that are touring the country doing comedy. But these are names that you won't hear because the general media doesn't really trust its comedians
Right.
as much as it trusts its musicians here in Canada. That's
You've
just what
mentioned
I've
some
observed.
names of comedians.
You
Who are
know.
some of your favorites?
My international favorites, like we have the King of Clean, Jim Gaffigan, of course, is up there. You know, if we're gonna go old school, Eddie Murphy, of course. You know, Richard Pryor, Carlin. Those are the greats. We've Hannibal Buress out of Chicago is great. Godfrey, also out of Chicago, is fantastic. If we're talking locals, there's a few locals that are great. Ryan Long hits really hard. Uh, who else do we have? Like I mentioned, Leonard Chan is on the come up very quickly. I would say, and who else? There's a few like real amateur level locals that just make me laugh so hard. Abbas Wahab, very funny dude, and Rahil Sheikh.
Right.
You can't. There's just personality that people that you just know. But one of the nice rising stars that you may see a little bit more often if this whole thing, comes back together. Black Zeus is an Ethiopian born in
Wow.
Greece that lives here in Canada. It's it's a lot. He is so funny. His
Nice,
energy is so
nice,
real,
nice.
and you gotta love it.
When you go to do your set, what are you looking to achieve?
Um, yeah, that's weird. I don't think I've ever put it into that scope before. It's moreover like I have these things that I'm gonna say, and you guys are either gonna like it or not. Um, I I mean, I've put it into this like military sense almost. Like I have this much time. All of these jokes are timed out. I'm looking for new stuff and I'm looking for certain audience reactions. But I'm just hoping that people enjoy themselves. And if anyone has problem, come check it up with me. You know what I'm saying? Um, but apart from that, yeah, I think I'm really just hoping that everyone enjoys themselves, and they
Nice.
laugh as much as they want to laugh.
What are your parents saying about you these days?
My mom came to one of my first comedy
Uh-oh.
shows ever and has not been back. Um, she's not been back. I wasn't very good to be honest. But I've sent her subsequent sets, and she likes it. She just doesn't really have the time for it. My dad is. I won't say he's impressed. But he does that Caribbean thing, it's like, oh, Dad, I just performed for 250 people and got paid for it. That's good. Yes. All right. All right.
Let me ask you, what have been some of your most cherished performances during your journey? What are some memories, some great memories you've had along the journey?
Most of them kind of involve usually travel. Like my favorite part of this, and I usually open my sets with this. My favorite part of doing this is I get to
Right.
travel. So right now is particularly hard for me because I had so much travel set up. Like this is going to be a year, and when I realized that different people laugh at different things in different places, uh,
Wow.
the
Yeah,
most is
share
when I
about
went
that.
to
That sounds
Edinburgh,
really special.
and it really was because I was originally just going to go support a friend because I was like, some people told me, hey, you can just go, you don't need to be invited. And then someone was like, hey, are you performing something there? And I was like, not really. I'm just going to go walk around. And they're like, you can just take something. And so I wrote and edited and compiled the show in about 4 months, which anyone will tell you is not a good idea. Um, and I produced it. I hooked up a venue, paid the security, I paid for everything, went and did it. And the show didn't do great, but I got what I wanted out of it. Um, but then while I was there, the Canadian Arts Association, I believe, whatever they're called, they put together a specifically Canadian show for expats who are living in the
Right.
UK and then some of the UK representatives. And that show was one of the worst shows that I had ever been on. Because of course it's a lot of older, like much older, one percenter types, very white audience. They've come to expect a very different kind of comedy being over there than from what we've been working on here in Toronto. And so when I brought that, and then some people kind of got it, but a lot of people just weren't on board. And I still loved it. It was a terrible show, and I loved it so much. I have the audio. It was so bad. One of the really good shows, and this predates going to Edinburgh actually, was when I got booked for a birthday party, and I was like a year and a half in, and the organizer comes to me and she's like, "Hey, I only have $100 in the budget, but I need you to do 35 minutes." Now, any comic can tell you 35 minutes a year and a half in, you don't have it. You don't have it. So obviously, I said, "Sure." Yeah, I'll give you a discount. 35 minutes, $100. $100 is a payday, by the way, a year and a half in. But I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's this place all the way up in Markham. And so I go there, and I get there, and she comes to me. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. There's a scheduling conflict. I only need you to do 25 minutes." And in my head, I'm like, but it still like doesn't, I only have like a good 7 right now, So I'm like, yeah, sure, it's fine. I got you. And I go up there, and I somehow muddled through, like I compiled all the material I ever wrote. Some of it was horrible. I managed to muddle through like 15 minutes. And then I realized that this is a huge Caribbean audience. They're Caribbean and African people. And so I got to do a lot of riffing. I got to do a lot of material that, I never get to try. I got to talk about back home when people actually cared. And so I actually do the 25 minutes. I do the 35 minutes. Nobody stops me. I'm like, who's taking me off the stage? Nobody comes. I don't want to leave an empty stage.
Oh my goodness.
I do an hour and 5 minutes on that stage. And still nobody stopped me. And so I ran out of water, and that's why I was just
Did you get paid?
I gotta go.
Okay, good.
And I did get paid, yeah. Yeah, and that's really what made me believe that I could do the Edinburgh show, because I'm like, I definitely have the time, not knowing that I was cheating the whole time, not even, and I didn't record that one either. I didn't record that set, so it's just like, yeah, that's just going to be a memory for me. I got the money, and by the time I had left, because they had a party, it was so late, yeah, and the TTC doesn't really run down from Markham, so one of the audience members, he was Trinidadian, he's like, "Yeah, come sleep on my couch." Wonderful family. I got to stay with them. And then I was like, yeah, it made me more confident in what I have to say and how I might be able to put it over for
how has the comedy game
audience
changed since you got involved?
Oh, immensely. In just a short span of 3 years, the thing I've seen a lot more is a lot more taking charge from people of color. Queer people have definitely taken over a space, solidified their space, and those intersections are often, those intersect more often than you'd imagine, and so those two communities play off each other very much, and there's more of a stronghold that you'll be supported by working in those rooms. You're not really relegated to just the traditional comedy, venues and avenues to be able to make a career for yourself. Whereas before, you kind of have to put your head down and work your way through the clubs and then get up to a festival and then get booked by agents and stuff like that. Now there are a lot of independents that don't touch the clubs. They don't touch the festivals. They make all of their money through their direct audience. Energy is probably one of the best examples. She's created an audience that is loyal. They know what they're looking for. She sources the right talent and brings it directly to them. Going through the clubs and going through the festivals is a great way to make sure that you lose a lot of time and a lot of money.
What are you looking forward to, when we're looking at this Sunday show? What are you excited about?
I have a few newer and slightly rewritten sets that I think will be okay online because I've had to change the format of a lot of stuff for it to be online. I've done one of NOJ's shows before, and I had so much fun there. So this is going to be kind of the first show of this type that I'm going to get to do online. So very excited to be able to pull that off and see what the response is going to be. Um, this Sunday, particularly like I said, Sunday's a very busy day for
What?
comedians. So that I think I've got something like 4 shows that day. So it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Kind of just like switching, and they're all on different apps and streaming platforms and stuff like that. And so yeah, kind of making sure that it all gets done, and I have to switch up the set, make sure all the writing's good, my background is okay. I have to fill it out a little bit. You know, it's gonna be interesting, but I'm very excited to come and see who's gonna be there. If they're gonna like what I'm bringing, if there anything
Oh,
like the audience
wonderful.
ever
And
laughed
MLJ
though,
is the lady
you're gonna
behind
love
this Sunday's event. So definitely, and to be honest, as I've told the other members of who are appearing this Sunday, I've known her for a while, but I did not know till recently she was involved in comedy. I didn't know till about 2-3 weeks ago.
A lot of comedians hide their secret life from their
the way
friends.
the way you the way you said
It's
that, it
not.
sounds like from some drama. The
It's
world
not.
find their secret life.
It really is. It really is. A lot of people are not, too forthcoming with the fact that they do comedy.
Excellent, excellent.
And I get that. It makes
How,
sense.
if someone came up to you, and I'm sure maybe one or two people do, and they say, Cliff, I want to get involved in the comedy game, what do you tell them?
So in the old days, in the before time, what you used to do is get yourself to an open mic. That would be my first recommendation. There are a couple of a fair amount of comedy schools that will take you on. Like, of course, there's Humber. If you want to learn how to write for TV and stuff like that, there's a few stand-up schools through Absolute Comedy and like in and Comedy Bar. You can do sketch and improv through the Assembly or Bad Dog Theater, and then of course there's always Second City, which has all of those things. So if you really want to go more of an academic route, I'd say yeah, go grab a class. If you want it in a more structured way, and you want to not necessarily take it seriously, but take it in that route. Versus if you're like, hey, I just want to go and really feel what the underbelly of comedy is like here in Toronto, I'd say, hey, get yourself to an open mic. One of my favorite
Yeah.
open mics. What's a good open mic? Today's what? Friday. It would be Laughter Luau. It would be at that's at Dover Court and Hallam. And that's just a basic open mic. You go, you sign up, you get 5 minutes. You get to watch a lot of amateur comedians. You get to watch pros drop in, and then figure yourself out. Figure out, hey, do I want to be funny in this way? Is this a joke? That sort of thing. Our audience is responding to what I'm saying. Uh, you can go over to Yuck Yucks. They have a mic every Tuesday, but you have to like sign up online. It's kind of difficult to get on. And then start working your way up. Actually, go to a comedy club and look at how the club is run, and then look at how the mic is run, and then
Yeah.
you'll kind of get to understand. Okay, there are steps from here to there. So if somebody wants to get really involved in comedy and kind of like see all the steps, I'd say follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, Clif Knight Comic. I post a lot of these updates. Like I said, I write articles who can to help amateur comics and stuff like that. I have a new
Where do
article
you
coming
get
out next week.
the
So yeah,
passion to give back? Because a lot of times comics may not want to write articles on this. Where do you get that sense of being to give back from?
um, for one, it's. I mean, of course, it comes from a place of wishing that I had that. At the time, I have had a couple of mentors who were great at making sure that I put the right energy in the right place and stuff like that. So I want to make sure I'm giving that recommendation back. at least. I have had people come up to me and say, hey, this has been a great help. There is a comedy Facebook group here for Toronto, but it's not really like it tries to be orderly, but it's not the most sensible place if someone has no scope of comedy at all. It's not really laid out for you. Someone had to really sit me down and explain parts of it, and so I was like, let me just like put that down on paper so that I have a go-to. Be like, hey, I kind of don't have the time to
Good
explain
stuff.
this to you, but
Well, Clif,
I've done it.
we're going to wind it down because I know you got moving to do, you got writing to do, you got 4 shows on Sunday, you have a fiance, you have a dog. I don't know what else. You probably have like 50,000 other things going on. First of all, I want to say thanks for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule. Second of all, just repeat where people can find you social media-wise.
Yeah, at Clif Knight Comic. You can find me pretty much every social media. That's Clif with one F, Night like Roundtable, and you'll be able to figure me out. And I post one new joke every day on my Instagram and my Facebook. So it's either a joke that I did at stand up, or it's a sketch that I did through TikTok or something.
Actually, one
like
other
that.
thing I
So
want
you'll
to
be able
ask you:
see
how
those every day.
challenging is it to manage all that stuff on your own?
It took just about a year of research and trial and error and
Honest.
mostly error to figure out what's gonna work for me, what's not gonna work. And there's still a few pieces of this puzzle that I'm missing, and of course I'm human, I fall behind. Like one of my things that I try so hard that I'm just not very good at is the mailing list. Is one of the big things I heard from an older comic was just like, yeah, get your mailing list early and make sure you keep it updated often. And I've told a lot of comics and people don't believe me. And now it's more important than ever, your mailing list. And I don't have a lot of people on there, but the people who are loyal on there, it makes sense. And so, yeah, managing that especially is like, it usually takes a whole day for me to put together a mailing list package. And I'm just not great at it. Like I said, I used to have a team that took care of it. Now I don't have any of that. So yeah, juggling it all. Thankfully, whenever I have to get something done, like go to a show or do an interview like this, I don't have to hop on and trust the TTC, and take 2 hours out of my day.
It's good stuff. Well, he's going to be part of the outstanding lineup. Big event happening on Sunday. It's called the Bun and Cheese. April Fool's Bun and Cheese edition online comedy happening this Sunday.
Bun and Cheese.
At 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, if you want to be part of it, you just go to Eventbrite, put in Bun and Cheese, and you'll get all the information there. Now, there are 2 levels of tickets. First of all, there's the Just Jokes. There's a limited amount of free tickets. Once all the free tickets are gone, it's all donation tickets. Then there's the Give a Hoot level, which is you give a donation if you can. And just so important, Clif, I just wanted to get your input here. How important it is to donate to support the artists? The importance of.
Oh my God, it's incredible right now. Mostly because now this has been a fight that comics have been fighting for a couple of years now. Comedy is not considered as an official art here in Canada, which has been kind of weird. Which means that we're not eligible for funding. For any of the federal, provincial, or municipal funding, you kind of have to find a back door. So kind-hearted people who are able to support you are pretty much the last, the last stand to make sure that we can keep creating this art for you and for everyone else. And I mean, in a time like this, everyone's turning on the Netflix, everyone's turning on their Instagram for inspiration, for entertainment. You're going to turn to the arts in times like these. So you need to make sure that people who do create it are, they are taking
very
care
important.
Of
Support our artists. They work really hard and they provide great value. Right now, even more, they're providing laughter and relief for many people who are burdened and stressed out at this time. So definitely support the artists. And you can start by supporting them on this event coming up on Sunday. Before we close out, just want to give some big shout outs. Like to thank the sponsors, two sponsors for this Sunday, Bees Tees and SOS Custom Clothing. Appreciate the sponsorship, and it's not taken for granted. I am Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show. I'm also host for this Sunday's Jokes. So I hope you'll be there because I'm looking forward to it. I already got my box of Kleenex that I had a long time ago before the rush, because I know I'm going to be doing some crying and laughter. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, and I have the home of Epic Conversations, again, 2018 award winner of the Innovation Award given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Now co-hosting monthly conversations with fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central Ontario and Dove Men Care. I'd like to close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Then block assumptions. And finally, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. God bless. Peace you well. Keep the faith. Clif, an absolute pleasure meeting you digitally. And when this is done, I definitely want to come to one of your shows. And you can even make jokes about me if you want to. You got full permission. All right, my brother? And thanks to Emoji for making all this happen. She is outstanding. And
right.
Everyone, stay safe and find some time for laughter and family during this time more than ever. God bless everyone. Keep the faith.
6 feet back. Love